Welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. It is the 4th of June, 2017. This happened a couple of days ago, but it was so hilarious. We've been meaning to cover it. Megyn Kelly sits down with some of the top leaders in the world, one of them being Vladimir Putin. Practically all of them owned her at one point or another during this kind of conference, as it were. But Putin, my Pootie, he did... I could laugh watching this all day long.
It was an economic symposium between India, Russia, Austria, and Moldova. Poor little Moldovan guy at the end, he got like one question, and then but he was just so happy to be on the world stage. I actually like to hear what he had to say, because he spoke from the heart. Like pretty much, we could get destroyed at any moment. Because it's such a small country, but Putin really laid it down. I love this guy. And then Prime Minister Modi from India, he was laughing the whole time, and when Megyn Kelly questions him too, his response is epic.
Take a minute and watch Vladimir Putin's eyes and face as he's listening to Megyn Kelly's questions.
One of the elements between Russia and the United States today, and indeed Russia and Europe today, is the allegation that Russia interfered in elections. Mr. Putin, this week you told a French newspaper that Russia is being accused of interfering with the U.S. election by people who lost that election, who don't want to admit defeat. But all 17 of the United States intelligence agencies have concluded that the Russians did interfere with our election, and these are nonpartisan career professionals, Republicans and Democrats alike on Capitol Hill, including President Trump's supporters, and some are your defenders, who have seen the classified intelligence report, have all accepted this conclusion. And even private, nonpartisan security firms say the same, that Russia interfered with the U.S. election. Are they all wrong?
Have you read those reports?
Non-classified version.
I read the non-classified version.
Well, the non-classified version, which is null and void. And who was your tailor? What about the pockets? What about the buttons? Do you have any claims about this suit? About the buttons? No, they are firmly tied, but you can't wear this suit. Can it happen? Yes, it did happen with one of our stand-up comedians, Mr. Aiken. And you've been telling me now about the non-classified versions. I read those reports.
The audience is loving Mr. Putin, by the way.
Even in those reports, there is no specific evidence, no facts, just assumptions, allegations, and conclusions based on the allegations, nothing more. You know, if there is something specific, concrete, we could discuss that. Like in one of the entities I previously used to work for, they said we need all the evidence, addresses, all the names and the surnames. Provide all that to us. With respect to independent source,
I'm going to back right up so you can kind of see some of the faces of the audience here.
Addresses, all the names and the surnames.
And that guy, they're laughing. They're all laughing. They're laughing. All of these people are laughing.
That to us. With respect to independent sources, there are no independent sources.
You'll notice that Russians have two levels. It's this, just still, and laughing. It's hilarious to me.
Sources in this world. And, you know, the recent appointments with your special services point to the fact that there are any likings, any attitudes. So I believe that we should stop this idle prattle, which is harmful, and I believe this is like transferring the internal political bickering of the United States.
He says he's going to say, I'm just going to steal his punchline, and taking the internal bickering of the United States and putting it on Russia.
Beyond the borders of the country, outside, on the international stage, trying to resolve political matters with the help of the foreign policy tools and international affairs, and that is detrimental to international affairs and the global economy and the issues of global security and fight against terror which is detrimental. And I have just cited an example when the Washington DC did not recommend the professionals to go to an anti-terrorist event of the Russian Federation, which is nonsense.
They said that U.S. officials didn't want to send up U.S. officials to anti-terrorist event because it was put on by Russia. That's just stupid. What is going on here? You go and you meet with Saudi stinking Arabia?
And these people, these very same people, initiate and are behind those reports. I believe that this should stop as soon as possible. We should start and resume normal cooperation. Globally, there are not many countries wielding sovereignty, and we've been daring our sovereignty, the fact that we have our sovereignty.
And that is the apex of the issue.
Yep.
Russia is a sovereign nation, and it will not be put under the thumb of the globalists like the United States has been. Saudi Arabia is under the hand of the globalists. Israel is under the hand of the globalists. And the European Union is under the hand of the globalists. Canada is under the hand of the globalists. Mexico is under the hand of the globalists. Any of the large companies are
countries.
That was a Freudian slip.
That was a Freudian slip.
All these large companies are under the Bilderberg groups and things like that. And there are certain people who can see through this, and I love the guy from Moldova because he sees it totally. He's like,
we can enjoy that fully, but sovereignty is needed to defend our interests.
So one of the reasons the question is relevant is because the United States views this as a matter of its national sovereignty, and as does the UK, as does Germany, as does France, and so it keeps coming up over and over. And what they say in response to the question of where is the proof is that this type of disinformation campaign is intentionally difficult to find hardcore proof of. It's other facts.
It's intentionally difficult to find hardcore proof. There is no proof. So we can make it up. That's how it works.
And what the experts say is that this...
And by the way, they have put an entire nation under judge and jury and executor, and they have executed Russia with no evidence, and you can't convict a criminal in court without beyond reasonable doubt that they're ready to go to war. They put sanctions on these people. They put people's lives on these people. Later on it talks about sanctions. People have lost their jobs. I mean, people have suffered greatly because of lack of proof.
Couldn't have been faked. That it's not one factor, that it's 100 factors that point to Russia. They say it's the forensics, it's the digital fingerprints, it's the IP addresses,
he giggles, forensics.
Malware, the encryption keys, the specific pieces of code, that all of them point to Russia, and none of them points to anyone other.
Isn't he epic?
He's great.
He can stare down a bear.
Yes.
What fingerprints, or hooves prints, or horn prints? What are you talking about? IP addresses, they can be invented, you know? There are very many specialists that can be...
He literally said, where's your fingerprints? Where's your hoof prints or horn prints?
They can invent or fix it up. You know, a kid of yours can send it. Your girl that is 3-year-old can perpetrate such an attack. And they present it like this. They can pass it off like this, and these specialists can invent anything, and then they will blame someone else. These are not proofs. These are trying to shock responsibility, and we don't have the problem. The problem is inside the American policy. The Trump team has turned to be more efficient during the electoral campaign. Sometimes I thought that, well, he overdoes, he overkills, I thought sometimes during the campaign. But it turned out that he was right. He's been able to find approach and to reach out to those electors whom he hoped for, and they voted for him. And the other team, they made a mistake, and they don't want to recognize this mistake right now.
He's calling it, you guys. He's calling it. He laid these cards on the table. He has a full house. Yep. The other team, Hillary Clinton, doesn't want to admit why they lost. Yep.
They don't want to say that they were not wise enough. It's easy to say it's not our fault. It's the Russians. They intervened. They interfered. It's like anti-Semitism. The Jews are to blame. You're an idiot because the Jews are to blame, right? And you know what? It's the Russians. They intervened. They interfered. It's like anti-Semitism. The Jews are to blame. You're an idiot because the Jews are to blame, right? And you know what such moods lead to? They will not end up in nothing good. One should work and think how to rectify things. And you have mentioned disinformation. What disinformation? One of the stovepiping facts by hackers is that one of the leaks by hackers is that the head of Madam Clinton's electoral office was not behaving properly against with respect to other candidates of the Democratic Party, but then when that appeared in public, she acknowledged it was true and she handed in her resignation. So that was a truthful fact. And who was the author?
So he's talking about Debbie Wasserman Schultz right here. Yep. Calls it spade.
Author of the leak does not matter. It is important to have a look at that, consider that, apologize to people and say that we'll never ever do that again. But what did they do instead? They said it's not our blame, it's the Russians. Were the Russians dealing with all that, trying to rush one of the candidates of the Democratic Party in prejudice of someone else? It was in between themselves. Just stop that, please.
He's laughing.
Okay, so I actually have watched, the whole thing was like 2.5 hours. I watched the whole thing. I've watched these pieces several times. And what he is saying here, if you didn't quite understand what he was saying, he's like, you really think that Russia tried to hack the DNC to try to show some sort of weird collusion about Bernie and Hillary? He's like, please, we didn't care about Bernie Clinton. Okay, we did not do this. This was not us. This was an insider. This was a DNC insider. This was 99% Seth Rich.
And what he's saying is, he's like, listen, y'all people don't even want to focus on the fact that you have this insider thing that's happening. You just want to shift it back to Russia. Every single time. That's exactly what he was saying. You don't even want to focus on your own issues.
You got some problems. People don't like you, and they don't even know. We have so many progressives that follow us because they don't like Clinton. There is an army against you, Clinton. There is an army against you, DNC. There's an army against you, establishment Democrats.
Yeah.
And you have named them Russia.
Yes. And you know what? You have made Russia your enemy.
Trump, even President Trump has said now that he believes Russia did it.
This is actually false. She is actually putting words in Trump's mouth, and this is really bad journalism.
So it's not just people who don't want President Trump in the office. And the difference between the hacking and the disinformation...
Oh, come on. Once again.
This is the conclusion of the 17 U.S. intelligence agencies and the others.
Американские агентства, 17 агентств в области безопасности говорят.
Into the Democratic National Committee and hacked into Hillary Clinton's campaign emails, but that they also perpetuated a campaign of disinformation that involved putting out fake news stories through Russian-controlled entities like RT and Sputnik, and that those then were pushed by aggregators and what they're called bots on Twitter and elsewhere, and specifically targeted at voters who were potentially pro-Trump, voters in the Rust Belt of America, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, who were potentially gettable for Trump, and that is the conclusion that they have reached.
All of us should take the American mass media's role model, you know. Megyn has been demonstrating today
the mad mass media
high class in her profession, because I have just cited an example that points out that there was no disinformation, no matter who was behind that leak about the Democratic Party. And the fact is that that director handed in her resignation. Once again, she says it's about disinformation. What kind of disinformation? I can't see any manifestation thereof. I don't know that.
They can't say why. They don't mention a story. They don't trace it back to a specific person and a specific computer.
Here's the thing, in case y'all missed what he said that Megyn Kelly is exuding high class in her profession. That was sarcasm, in case you missed that.
No high class. Okay.
And what President Trump has been saying, just show me the quote. He won, he said, because of the Russian intervention. I don't remember him saying so.
He finally came around to saying, I think Russia did it, and he said, I don't think he'll do it again.
Well, you see, it seems it's a very, very serious question of world politics, and this is an impression, or what seems to you that you're talking about. This is not just as simple as having an interview or writing an article in a newspaper. As for the interference, look at what your colleagues are doing in our country.
Look how they're laughing.
They have been deep down in our domestic...
This is what I love. Okay, you guys? I want to title this something like Russian audience laughs entire way through. Because when you know something is so ridiculous, all you can do is laugh. If there was an ounce of truth, if there was a milliliter of truth, they would be like, oh, if any Russian actually believed it to like a nil degree, I didn't mean the nth degree, but like a tiny piece of it, they wouldn't be laughing their heads off. Okay? It's like if people kept, I'd actually kind of be offended if people kept calling me an agent, but I love their sense of humor on it.
Yeah.
Policies, doing what they want, enjoying themselves on a systemic basis. For many years, they've been unceremoniously, grossly interfering within our domestic affairs at the level of diplomatic embassies. This has to stop.
He gets a little angry here, and they're still laughing. He says that the United States has been in our affairs for years.
Right.
This is not a joke. Everybody knows what's going on in Crimea, whatever you're saying, Crimea, and the Ukraine, and how George Soros poured like over $500 million. He actually mentions that into the Ukraine, and how like right now in the Ukraine, they there's a media blackout. Like Clinton went in, and our money went in to try to like open up the world to them, and then this coup happened, and now it literally sucked in like a black hole, to where it's like a China type censorship.
Like it's going to be easier for everyone, for you and for us as well.
I think that's pretty much it.
There's another clip.
Oh, well,
there's the Assad clip here.
All right, so let me pause.
I was cold, all alone, no place for